Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the interruption. Now it's time for our scientific session 3, that is a session for oral presentation. The organizer of this session is Dr. Farsim Tarannum Hop. She is a graduate from the 5th cohort of FETPB, and currently she is working as a medical officer at IEDCR.
The session will be moderated by Dr. Mohammad Mushtaq Hussain. Dr. Mohammad Mushtaq Hussain joined Institute of Epidemiology, Disease Control and Research in 1993 as a senior scientific officer and retired as the head of the department and principal scientific officer of medical social science of IEDCR. He is a graduate from Dhaka Medical College. He did his MPhil from INFS, Dhaka University, and PhD from University of Cambridge, United Kingdom. He was core committee member of National Rapid Response Team. He conducted many sensational outbreak investigation. He was the coordinator of Field Epidemiology Training Program Bangladesh and the Improving Public Health Management for Action ran by US Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Atlanta. After his retirement from IEDCR, he continued his career as an epidemiologist and public health expert. He was consultant of US CDC, WHO, ICDDRB, World Bank. He is an adjunct faculty of Jahangirnagar University, Bangladesh University of Professional, North-South University, and James P. Grant School of Public Health, and also other academic institutions. Dr. Mushtaq is now working as a consultant of World Bank for crisis, emergency, and risk communication. Dear audience, I would like to hand over to Dr. M. Mushtaq Hussain sir to moderate our next session. Dear audience, Dr. Mohammad Mushtaq Hussain.
I think you can hear me. Yeah. Thank you for presenting me, Dr. Rabbani and Dr. Farzana. Also our team, Dr. Farsim and others, Dr. Firdaus, and in the Zoom, Dr. Subrato, Dr. Farooq, and Facebook Live is by Dr. Prince, as I see in the Google Doc. The COVID is the most pressing topic in our time. We are still in the pandemic, in the second wave. It is rising and rising in a spike fashion. So the presenters in this first Congress of Epidemiology and for Public Health of Bangladesh, it is very naturally dominated by COVID issues. Besides that, there are also other important issues. So I think this is the third scientific session. We have learned many interesting insights from the previous two sessions, and we're also waiting for more and more interesting sessions followed by. I think we are also already behind 5 or 8 minutes. At first, I will request to present on women death rate and cases are less than men in Bangladesh. I think this is on COVID, though in the title it is not written here. Validation of this view and possible explanation. We would like to have among us Professor Dr. Nasima Sultana, who is Additional Director General of Administration of Director General of Health Services, but due to her pressing schedule, she could not make her time. But one of the co-author of this scientific presentation, Dr. Farhana Habib is among us. She is National Consultant, A2I UNDP and Vital Strategies of Bloomberg Data for Health at DGSS. She is working for more than 18 years in public health. I will request Dr. Farhana Habib to present the topic for the audience present here, also on the online. Dr. Farhana, please.
On behalf of Professor Nasima Sultana, I'm giving this presentation to all. Yes. First, women death rate and cases from COVID-19 is less than men in Bangladesh. Validation of this view and potential explanation. The mortality rate of COVID-19 is significantly less in women than in the most countries that are reporting their cases. According to DG Health report, According to Dizzy Health report, calculated death rate is 78.26% for men and 21.74% for women. This is proportion of deaths. Overall case fatality rate in Bangladesh lies at 1.27%, while case fatality rate for males is higher than females, 1.38 for male and 1.01 for female. This is case fatality. And co-validate this, a study was done that analyzed reports generated from COVID-19 dashboard, MCCOD Dizzy Health, COVID-19 telehealth center data, and rapid mortality surveillance data from Dizzy Health. This is a methodology part is like that. This is a more review data documents and analytics from different sources of data that is produced during this COVID situation. There is COVID-19 health bulletin, COVID dedicated hospital data, and press release data also there, MCCOD, CRVS data, COVID telehealth data center data, and rapid mortality survey data. Here is in Bangladesh, this is World Women Gender database. So this is extracted from in October. So in Bangladesh, death ratio from COVID-19 is 77 to 23%. Here there are different countries information. In Bangladesh, we see that 23% deaths and for female and male for 77%. And cases, confirmed cases 29% and 71% for male. COVID-19 disaggregated data from selected Asian region also. We see that male COVID cases as percent of all COVID cases. Here we see that in all cases, majority, we see that female cases, male cases is high than female cases. COVID-19 infected cases and deaths. Overall case fatality rate in Bangladesh was 1.27%, while case fatality rate for males was higher than females, 1.38 versus 1.01. And proportion of death rates, Bangladesh, proportion of deaths, this also indicate a similar pattern of 1003, 22% for female and 78% for male. Frequency also, here we are trying to show the different sources of data that are showing that similar pattern is here. Like press release is also 78% for male and 22% for female. MCCOD data, this is facility based routine health sources data. This also showing the 74% and 26%. And also rapid mortality survey, which is carried by Bloomberg Data for Health Initiatives Bangladesh, CRVS, Cabinet Division. This is also showed that 68% and 35% for female. And telehealth data, this is different sources of information from mobile services. So this is also 76%, 24%. Proportion of infection, we have also said that this is from also the press release information and national surveillance system. This is showing that similar pattern, 30% and 70%. And extraction date is also there. Comorbid conditions and deaths and cases. The National COVID-19 Surveillance System and Telehealth Center recorded total number of cases with comorbidities. National Surveillance System saying also that comorbidities with male 10% in cases and female 14%. And also Telehealth Center data also is showing that 20% for male, and here also female it is a little bit high, 23%. Comorbid conditions in COVID-19 cases and deaths. In death cases, here previously I have just, this slide was for cases and here this is death cases. This also telehealth for female, it is 27% and 73%. MCCOD data health, was also 26% for female and 74% for male. Overall, we're seeing that comorbid conditions are higher in men than in women. Men with comorbid conditions when exposed to COVID-19 are more at risk than women. Disease severity, and in case of disease severity and symptoms, data from April through August 2020 showed that men accounted for approximately 2/3 of all cases requiring oxygen support. This percentage has been relatively constant each month, and we saw that male oxygen support is 65% and was female for 35%. It was up to April to August. And also this slide is showing that high fever, extreme fatigue, cough, the symptoms of COVID symptoms is more than male, than more is female than female. Disease severity symptoms is more prevalent among men than women. In case of high fever, cough, and difficult breathing may be more prevalent among men than women. That is our findings from different sources of data. Overall findings is that different data sources analysis reports suggest that the number of comorbid conditions are higher in men than in women. Men with comorbid conditions is exposed to COVID-19 are more at risk than women. Hormones and biological responses factor possibly help women effectively fight against the coronavirus. Social factor, men spend much more time outside their homes and the crowded places than women, and this is one of the main reasons that COVID-19 poses a noticeably bigger threat to men than it does to women in Bangladesh. Men seek medical attention later than women, which worsen disease prognosis, and men smokers are much higher than women, which increases risk. Limitation was a lack of widespread testing in countries where asymptomatic cases remain underreported, so this was limitation, and the incomplete and fragmented data available all with missing demographic information makes it difficult to determine the underlying biological, psychological, and behavioral factors. And conclusion, we say that studies over the last 8 months from March to November 2020 identified some causes that attributes to the gender disparity, human genome, immunity, male-female hormones, disease conditions, and behavioral patterns are all interlinked for the heterogeneity in the outcome. And conclusion, we say that usually biological research about male and female disease patterns are studied less, but this significant observation, this indicates that more studies need to take place in the near future. Now it is the time for more research. It is the infectious disease and it will take some more time to answer many queries. For Bangladesh, we need more information, relevant data to process and find the actual causes behind this type of outcome to understand the country's specific variables. Thank you.
Thank you, Farhana Habib. Very interesting. I could not find any question in the Google Doc. Anybody please from this room, you can ask any question that will raise interest in discussion. Please, Dr. Sajjad.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Mohammad Sajjad Hussain. In your overall findings, you say that the female comorbidity is less than women, but in your graph, I've seen that the female comorbidity is more than the male. So why there is a difference?
In one cases, just television, there's a female comorbid condition is high, 23 and 20. There is some limitations was data, that's why in one cases. But in majority data sources, we have found that comorbid situation for male is less than female is less than male.
I'm a little bit confused. In your graphs, say that female comorbidity, please go back to your graph. Yes. Comorbidity, female, 27%.
Female deaths with comorbid situation due to COVID is 27%, and for male, it was 73% from our data sources, different types of data sources. Here, just showing two data sources.
Thank you. Please, I am inciting you to raise question. Please, Dastagir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is a very nice presentation and really very different findings than others. So you got the female comorbid condition and mortality rate is less than the male. This is obvious, a lot of confounding factors because, so if you estimate the number of hospitalization rate with mortality rate, what are the difference? Hospital, in compared to male, female is less hospitalization. That's our hypothesis and like practical observations. So did you consider the percentage of hospitalization among male and female?
Yes.
And then mortality, calculate the mortality?
During this study, we didn't find any hospitalization due to COVID information, but after that we have some studies containing just sample survey, and from the Dizzy Health COVID patient positive cases call list, and we found that 22% female just got admission due to COVID symptoms and like this. But I think this is also in that case due to hospitalization, it also greater than male, female.
So if you compare the hospitalization 24% versus the mortality rate,
Oh, this is a mortality. I am not sure what you.
So
I think
then
we
it
didn't
will be-
consider this one.
right?
Yes.
So you should consider what percentage are going to the hospital for care-seeking behavior or like
Yeah.
and then mortality. Then it will be okay.
Okay.
The gender reason, health-related gender reason is that female are not going to be hospitalized
Yeah.
as much as compared to male.
Yeah.
Thank you
There's
very
also social factors also involved with this, and we have some quantitative information here, but we have some due to limited time, we didn't in detail due to that our social factors like women employment rate is less than man, and other cases, the smoking pattern is women is less than man. In so many conditions are trigger this less man
Right.
cases again.
Including
in
the
favor of women,
Yeah, including mobility.
Yeah,
Male are
also.
more.
Mobility is
going
one of
outside.
factors, yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harun. Ashrafi, Dr. Ashrafi, please.
Thank you, sir. I am one of the contributor of this
Yes.
write-up. I am Dr. Shah Ali Akbar Ashrafi, working as a Chief Health Information Unit, Director of the Health Services. Basically, answering to your question that the females are less hospitalized during the COVID situation, and the data already shows that the medical certification of the cause of death, the death that's occurring at the facility level, and the cause of death identified by the WHO standard medical certification of the cause of death. So in the data, it shows that the most of the death occurring at that time belongs to the male rather than the female. So, and it is not covered all the facilities. It is covered 110 facilities. Right now, the medical certification of the cause of death is introduced in around 157. Right now, 157, but at that time it was the 110 facilities, both public and private hospitals. So this is the.
Definitely there is a data limitation is there also.
So these are the limitations. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
It's well, but if you compare with the similar countries' data with the mortality, then it will be more stronger.
And I have showed first slide is different
then
countries,
we can-
also Asian region, there is some data is there, yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I have a question in the Google Doc. Any significance or point of intervention from the study findings? The question is, any significant from the study findings or point of intervention, where will intervene to reduce the mortality of male?
I think this is just evidence creation for Dizzy Health to create an evidences like to give suggestions. This is prepared for Dizzy Health. I think they can give suggestions and they can take intervention against this. Mask wearing and others, they are taking already so many interventions as there. And I think this is not final decisions, but we think we need more investigation like clinical determinants from hospital at this stage to find out the clear idea about this. Is correct this information that female death rate and cases is less than male. So this is, I need more data-based research in this regard. So.
Thank you. And I hope that it is a situation analysis, more or less,
Yeah.
descriptive, and it will lead to further research for find out the cause. The possible causes that have been presented by the presenters is only hypothesis. And on interesting thing
Review
is,
documents,
Yeah.
existing data
The global
sources,
picture,
existing data sources.
have you noticed that in the global picture, the more a country is developed, the less is the difference between male and female mortality. And the South Korea is at the bottom. I don't know where the case of Europe or North America might be, the gap is more close, so that will be for our future research, it will be helpful.
I think this is worldwide situation. Yesterday we have a meeting with Bloomberg Data for Health USA. They also showed same pattern of information from different countries.
Okay.
So,
No, more,
yeah.
in total, it is a
I
more,
think need
more
research
male
is
mortality than
needed,
female.
More,
Yeah, you're right,
more
yeah.
research is needed for clinical determinants and others. So
Thank you. Thank you. Please give a hand
Thank
to
you.
Farhana Habib. Now our next presenter, Dr. Nasreen Akhtar Lina. She is a FETP Frontline Fellow, and she is now, she was UHFPO, now Deputy Program Manager at Community-Based Healthcare, CBHC DGHS. She will present on challenges for healthcare managers during COVID-19 pandemic in Bangladesh. COVID-19 pandemic situation in Bangladesh. Please, Dr. Nasreen.
Thank you, sir. Good morning and good evening to all from wherever you are. I am Dr. Nasreen Akhtar Lina, working as DPM, Deputy Project Manager, CBSC, Community Clinic, Shastha Sahayata Health Supporting Trust. My topic is challenges for the healthcare managers during COVID pandemic situation in Bangladesh. Dr. Geeta Rani Devi was working at this sector, at this study as a co-author with me. COVID pandemic actually made a huge change in our day-to-day life, in our service life, in our field level, everywhere. It has made immense changes. And as a part of the world, Bangladesh is not outside of this pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic is Bangladesh, part of worldwide pandemic of coronavirus disease. Government of Bangladesh imposed a nationwide lockdown from the March 26, 2020 to May 30, 2020 in wake of coronavirus. And later the lockdown has increased in several times. We all know that. 60 areas of our country with half of the places of capital city was under a specialized lockdown. And our healthcare delivery system was primary level, secondary level and tertiary level. And the primary healthcare delivery system, here the healthcare manager is UHFPO, that is Upazila Health and Family Planning Officers, and at district level, civil surgeons are working at this sector. They are the administrators at this level working to serve the primary healthcare or healthcare service and also to ensure the primary healthcare services. Besides the central level and back office, healthcare managers also engaged with the COVID-19, but we are focusing mainly the district and Upazila healthcare level managers. The specific objective of my study is to describe the problems faced by the healthcare managers at the field level due to pandemic situation. Study method, it was actually a qualitative study conducted from March 20 to June 20. That is, I especially focused on the lockdown period. Whatever problem arised from the local level or from the society at that period, and from the healthcare delivery system, the healthcare managers have to take the challenges and to solve the problems because it was completely new to them. So I liked here that is highlighted. An online questionnaire was developed and sent it via mail to the healthcare managers. Only civil surgeons and UHFPs were interviewed and they are included in this study. The survey questionnaire were mailed to 200 healthcare managers working at field level. Only 130 of them responded and gave the feedback. Among them, 18 were civil surgeons and 112 were the healthcare managers, that is UHFPO, working at the Upazila level. Now, coming to the point of the challenges of the healthcare situations. First of all, I'd like to mention that budget allocation for the COVID-19. As it was a new situation and suddenly it grabbed the whole world, including Bangladesh, no allocated budget, especially for the expense of COVID-19 or such pandemic situation at that time. Initially, healthcare managers were in severe dilemma about the expense management of the COVID-19. Around 5% healthcare managers handled the situation with the help of local administrators like MP, Member of Parliament, Upazila Chairman, District Commissioner at the time. Later, Ministry of Health allocated budget for the healthcare facilities for COVID-19, but initially it was very tough to manage and thinking in a new way. The second one, I would like to tell that PPE and mask scarcity. Sudden increasing demand of the PPE and mask for the sectors caused severe scarcity. Demands versus supply was seriously disturbed. Even enough production house was not ready at the time to deliver the masks and PPE for all the sectors. And initially also there is another factor that all the other sector personnel began to using the PPE and masks. So for the healthcare needs, it was slightly decreased at that time. To get a mature environment, we had to pass a certain unavoidable time. Due to lack of enough protective tools, all the healthcare service delivery providers could not be capitalized. The third one is readiness to healthcare service providers. It was completely a new situation. COVID-19 was completely a new, has started a new thing in the whole worldwide, and it was panicked the whole society, whole people of the world. So as a part, panic about the new pandemic made them confused, the healthcare delivery personnel especially, confused about the decision making in many ways. How to conduct the hospitals, how to not to involve the whole staffs in the healthcare delivery systems, so that if some are attacked, others can be avoided. Knowledge about the new COVID-19 was very much limited, so panic really embarrassed them in some situations. To cope with newly emerging situation was really a big challenge. Now the continuous workload and mental stress. I like to mention here that the continuous load, that means every time there is update coming, that there is a new case, there is a prevention, there should be training on sample collection, there should be training on how to collect the samples at home or how to collect it at hospitals, like that. So, and also it is stress that involves all the persons. Even the healthcare managers had to go through a huge mental burden, and working load was huge because they had to work the whole day and night and always had to be alert. Lack of proper quarantine plan was also initially missing, because in big cities, we all know hotels were managed for the quarantine for the healthcare delivery personnel. But in local area, there is only quarters, the staff quarters, and all the staffs live with their families. So after working at the hospital, then they had nowhere to go, because the local personnel were not ready to rent their houses for that purpose, because there were prejudice, and they were not so much knowledgeable that it will not cause harm to them, or doctors are necessary or nurses are necessary. They should live somewhere and they should help them. But it was made them that they should first leave, then others. Government quarters were there, actually I told that, and shops and hotels are also almost closed without certain period due to lockdown, and so the staffs had to compromise on meal issues also. Now the continuous to and fro communication and coordination. It is actually a coordination was a huge burden, because the administrative level, the Thana officers, officer in charge, the field officer in charge, all were coordinated in such a way that point of entry and contact tracing was a huge challenge for all of us, and every time we all had to work at teamwork. For an UGPU and for a civil surgeon, actually they had to take the overload in addition to the managing the hospital activities. Now I would like to tell the complex situation due to lockdown. hospital staffs and field staffs were managed in different ways, and different studies, motivational work, motivational training, and motivational studies were done at that time to motivate the healthcare service providers, because it was really a panic situation. Sample collection strategy, I would like to tell it about the general people were not ready to welcome the COVID team due to the panic to be isolated, and in some places the sample collection team faced violence to some extent. Management of COVID-19 positive healthcare providers, only 5 beds could not be managed. Only 5 beds could be managed to deal with the COVID-19 patients at the initial level, because these 5 beds were not enough for them, because patients were more, that number more what is allocated for them. And the COVID-19 dead body management, it was also a very much big challenge, because local reporters of overactivity sometimes made the job very tough, and panic and lack of knowledge made the situation very much complex.
I think you have...
Conclusions,
Yes.
I'm ending.
Last slide.
Bangladesh, as a lower middle income country, has numerous limitations in handling the COVID situation in perspective to healthcare delivery management issues. The challenges can be counted in improving the health situation in many ways and making policy makings.
Thank you, Dr. Nasreen, for presenting us a very much real problem and reality at the grassroots level. Again, the pandemic is rising. From her experience, we can tackle the situation effectively. I am seeing the Google, yet the question is yet to arrive. In the meantime, I will request the audience present here to put their interesting questions.
You in your presentation you showed that the study was conducted by online survey.
Yeah.
And we all know that when the COVID situation arises, in that time there is a panic and also the budget limitation.
Yeah.
But when we know the situation and we manage the pandemic, and government allocated huge amount of money.
Yes.
So especially my question is, when the online survey is you done in the time of March when COVID is introduced in our country, or it is later on or June, July, or August, or September?
Yes.
So when you done this survey?
Thank you so much for your question. Actually, when this survey was done, I was working at UHFPO at Manikganj, Daulatpur, Upazila Health Complex. So I was really busy at that time. I noted the point and discussed, and that time I was staying continuously at Upazila Health Complex, and one by one I noted the problems and discussed how to do that with other HFPOs, and then I made the question. But actually, I gave the questionnaire at the end of the May.
Okay, Dr. Faisal, are you?
End of the May,
and I got all the findings at August. Because
May to August. Time period.
Because I have to collected all these, and I have to wait for their feedback. So I did that.
Yes, very useful study.
Thank you.
Any other? Oh, please.
Thank you, sir, for your nice presentation. I am Dr. Tauhid. I am an FETP Bangladesh Fellow. I just want to ask, during the high charge of patients in peak, there is no budgetary allocation from the DGHS to the Upazila level health code. And as per I know, the budget allocation was done after 6 months.
Yeah.
Just I want to ask you, sir, how can you mitigate the budget after 6 months of peak or pandemic use? And there arises a question about further audit and best use of this money. So as there is gap, how can a station manager can use the best use of this budget allocation before closing the next upcoming budget demand from the health code system? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for your question. Actually, yes, it was a huge challenge, but day by day, when the case was increasing and the alarming situation was creating, everyone became alert. So from the Upazila, the other officers and other departments helped us in serving the PPE and mask. Also by this time, we got the mask and PPEs and other requirements from that. And also, we are told that you can use yes, we know that from the Upazila section, we cannot spend the money from one code to another code. But there are some instructions that you can spend money from this code for that situation. So we spend only to show that it is spending in other sectors, but we actually use this in purpose. And you are right, we got the budget after 6 months, that is for quarantine budget. Almost it is distributed in every Upazilas, and we actually also managed from the local MPs. I mentioned that local MP and local government.
Thank you. Any more question? Our time is, I think, only, yes, Dr. Dastakir, please. Short, question short, answer short.
Thank you very much. This nice presentation.
Thank you, sir.
So my name is Dastakir Harun. I work for ICDDRB, and I mainly deal with the infection prevention and control program. So this is the very useful initiative that you did. So actually, one limitation that or space to improve I found working on IPC during the pandemic situation is like the optimum use of the PPE or resources. So did you have any question or like that? Suppose the admin officer who need not to be involved with patient caring is wearing the full PPE, is wasting and also creating some problem for himself. So this type of rational use of PPE or appropriate use of PPE, have you focused anything on it?
Yeah.
Second, actually, in your questionnaire, is there any aspect of practice observation whether suppose the cleaner is maintaining or wearing the PPE appropriately and regularly? That's my question. Did you have any observation question like that or not?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was also a challenge because initially we were instructed that those who are above 50 years and also have complications like diabetes, hypertension and other complications, they would be excluded. But the sample collection team or the cleaners, some of them were really above 50 or aged or with complications. Then they are the persons who took the training. But how could I involve others to take this? Because it was a panic situation. Everyone was not agreed to do that. But they were convinced. They sometimes, in my Upazila, I like to share that, he used 2 or 3 PPEs every time for every person for collecting the sample. But I have limited only 100 or 200. So I told him several times, just use and burn it, but use only one. But he never paid attention to my word. But to continue my work or my jobs, I did say nothing to him.
We can understand, Dr. Nasrin, please. Thank you for presenting such a real-life problem of the grassroots, our health managers. I think we will utilize your experience for managing this second wave of pandemic. Thank you. Please.
Thank you so much, sir.
Our time is becoming narrowed down. I request Dr. Shah Mohammad Mohibullah to present on treatment cost of hospitalized COVID-19 patient in Bangladesh. It's like something like economics, health economics. His 5th cohort of APTPB, and our medical officer at IIDCR, Dr. Shah Mohibullah.
Welcome everyone to the first Bangladesh Congress on Epidemiology and Public Health 2021. I am Dr. Shah Mohammad Mohibullah, APTP 5th Cohort, Medical Officer, IDCR. My presentation topic is treatment cost of hospitalized COVID-19 patients at Dhaka, Bangladesh. If we look at the current situation of COVID-19 infection in Bangladesh, more than 500,000 cases have been reported. Among them, 17% of them needed hospital isolation and 1.5% died. Bangladesh is the 33rd country in the world, accounts for 0.5% of the COVID-19 cases of the world. Objectives of our study was to estimate the treatment cost of hospital admitted COVID-19 patients in Bangladesh, specifically estimate the direct medical and non-medical cost, and also identifying the coping mechanisms for bearing treatment cost. It was a descriptive study. This study was started from 15 August to 15 September 2020. Among the patients who were hospitalized at Dhaka reported to the surveillance system of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Data collection approach was bottom-up, directly from the patients, retrospectively through the telephonic interview with a semi-structured questionnaire. Estimated sample size was 346. Operational case definition. COVID-19 cases was defined as a person with laboratory confirmation of COVID-19 irrespective of clinical signs and symptoms. And hospital admitted COVID-19 patients, a COVID-19 case admitted in any hospital and or RT-PCR test performed after admission in the hospital with any other complication or disease. Those who admitted before 15 August and had no outcome, like not recovered or died, and no mobile number, was excluded from our study. Direct medical cost consists of cost for inpatient care, cost for drugs or medication, cost for investigations, diagnostic test for RT-PCR. And direct non-medical cost was consist for transportation and food cost of the patients and the caregivers. Coping mechanism for treatment cost was use from the savings to loan and get donation to bear this expenditure. Now we go to the results section. We phone call total 686 patients, hospital admitted patients. Among them 51%, 352 completed their interview. This was our study population. If we look at the age group distribution and gender, I did here, male was 57%. Predominantly hospital admitted cases was male, and highest patient were reported from the 60 and above age group. It was 30%, 105. And if we look at the male patients were more after the 60 age group. Hospitalized COVID-19 patients were mostly symptomatic. 96% hospitalized patient was symptomatic. Among them, 80% had fever, followed by dry cough, loss of taste, shortness of breath, and loss of smell. If we look at the comorbidities, 65% of the hospital admitted patient had comorbidities, mostly diabetics, 47%, 103, and followed by hypertension, cardiac diseases, asthma, chronic kidney disease. Hospital admission, 51% patients were admitted in the government hospitals and 47% were in private hospitals. 6 patients who completed the interview were both admitted in government and private hospitals. They were referred from one type of facilities to another types of facilities. And diagnostic test, if we look at most of the patient, 40% patients gave sample to the government hospital and 37% to the private hospitals. Among the hospitalized patient, 44 patients, 12.5% needed ICU support. Among them, 30 patients took this support from the private hospitals and 14 from government hospitals. If we look at there, the ratio of taking ICU facilities were more in private hospitals. 52% of the patient needed oxygen therapy. Few number of patients got all drugs from the hospitals, and they all are from the government hospitals. Now, the most interesting part, direct medical and non-medical cost among the hospitals. We stratified it between government hospitals and private hospitals. If we look at direct, we found that average direct medical cost for private hospitals were higher than government. For private hospitals, direct medical costs were $2,200, whereas government were only $200 US. In case of non-medical cost, it was higher for the government hospitals, and during our interview, we found that in private hospitals, food cost and transportation cost was less. In government hospitals, people have to take foods for their care for their patients. The caregivers frequently visited the hospital in the government hospitals. We also stratified the ICU patients' cost. Average ICU cost for private hospitals were $4,300, whereas government were only $800. Now, we also stratified the cost per day. Average cost per day for private hospitals were $194, where government hospital costs were only $23 per day. For ICU patients, private hospital costs were 6-fold higher than the government per day. And when we identifying the coping mechanisms, 32% of the patients used from their savings, 25% took loan, and 15% got donation to cope the treatment cost during the COVID-19 infection after admission in the hospitals. We found that cost varied by type of hospital and ICU needed. You already find out this is in our results. Private hospitals and ICU management cost exceeded per capita GDP in Bangladesh. You already know that in 2020, per capita GDP was $1,816. To cope this cost, patient has to take loan used from their savings, and they have to donations. We want to find out the cost effectiveness of COVID-19 vaccination. It is our recommendation. We also notify that our study, this study will provide evidence to justify the significant investment in prevention and control measures for this outbreak and future outbreaks. Promote further study of cost effectiveness, already I mentioned, and importantly, this study will notify that we have a need of increasing our health budget, especially in the government facilities. We know that when we did this study, we found that a lot of patients, 47% patients admitted in private hospitals. If we can give them admission in the government hospitals or government facilities, their cost could be reduced. And it will also justify the necessity of health insurance in Bangladesh. I thanked all of them who helped me to do this study. And that's all for now. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Dr.
your patient
Mohibullah.
sharing.
A different type of a study, very much needed. I will open the floor for questions. Please. Introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Mohib. I'm Dr. Nusrat, FATP graduate from second cohort. So it's a nice presentation and nice study also, the cost effectiveness on the COVID-19 situation. So my question is, did this study find out why there is more percentage to take the ICU facilities from private hospital than the government hospital? Kind of is there any proportionate relation that private hospital has more ICU bed or ICU care facilities than the government? Or is there anything you find during your study? Thank you.
Can you share the slides? Okay. We thank you. Thank you for the question. We randomly selected the patients. We didn't take the patients with a prefixed proportion for ICU or prefixed proportion for government or private hospitals. We collected a line list from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare that from August 15 to September 15, which number of patients was admitted in Dhaka. And from this line list, we randomly selected the patient in a systematic random sampling. And at that random sampling, we mentioned that it was a descriptive study. We find out that 47% patients were from private, 12.5% patients from ICU, and it was randomly came to us that within this 12.5% patient, 30 patients were from private hospitals, 14 patients were from government hospitals.
Thank you. Another question has been popped up in the Google Doc. I would like to draw your attention. How did you overcome or minimize possible bottlenecks of telephonic interview?
Yeah, it's one of our limitations. Due to pandemic situation, we cannot validate we want to validate the telephonic interview. There is a procedure, at least 20% of the telephonic interview patients should be validated face-to-face interview, but due to this pandemic situation, this was not allowed from the patient. You already note that the response rate was also very low, only 51% telephonic interview, and for that reason, we didn't do this validation.
Okay. Dr. Rashid, please raise your question.
Thank you, sir. I am Dr. Rashid, FETP Fellow of 4th Cohort and now working at IDCR. So thank you, Dr. Mohib, for your nice presentation. You mentioned that 96% cases were admitted with symptoms. My question is, why the 4% asymptomatic patient admitted in the hospital?
Thank you. It is an interesting question. It was my question when I analyzed this data, and we found that these 4% patients, they admitted in hospital for isolation. They had nowhere to be isolated in their home or any other where. For that reason, they were admitted to the hospital. Few patients, they were the caregivers and become infected, and they admitted. They took admission in their hospital, and for that reason, they were listed there. And 96% patients we found, they have symptoms.
Okay, nice. Now
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, Afzal, please. Before Afzal, I want to put observation. In a recommendation, it told that more and more patients should be in government hospital. But think another way around. How can we recommend the minimizing the cost of private sector? That should be. We cannot put everybody in government hospital out of the private sector, but private sector should be. We find the way out how the cost of the private sector should be coming down. Anyway, Dr. Afzal.
I'm Dr. Afzal. I was the FETP 3rd Cohort Fellow. I'm working now in Ministry of Health Economics Unit. First of all, thank you for your nice presentation. I could really follow your presentation. From your presentation, in your recommendation, you have recommended many things. One of the recommendation was to find out the cost effectiveness to develop the national policy of COVID-19 vaccination introduction. So I would like to know a little bit more, how could you relate this recommendation with your result, the cost effectiveness or the out-of-pocket expenditure of the patient? And one more thing, we know, and you have also mentioned, that the cost depends on the severity of the disease also. So could we do also the cost according to the severity of the disease? Could we do that or not?
Yeah.
That was my question.
Yeah, first I want to answer your second question, then I will answer your first question. Thank you. The second question is, I also stratified the differences between this among the severity, but it was most of the, if you notified or followed my slides, due to shortage of time, I didn't discuss about the bed cost, doctor's fee, a lot of things. If we look at there, in the private hospitals, the bed cost, doctor's fee, pathological cost, these are more higher than the government cost. For that reason, the direct medical cost increased. You asked me the second question about severity. Mainly, the severity did not directly not justified with the cost. It was my hypothesis also, but when I analyzed that, the site or the facilities needed for a patient, like a patient admitted in a private hospital or in a government hospital. In a government hospital, he had no cost for drugs, he had no cost for doctor's fee, or he had no cost for equipment cost, but in private hospital.
In your slides, you have showed that there was cost for drugs as well.
Yeah.
In government hospital.
Government hospital, yes.
So a mild patient or moderate patient may not be that much having that much cost than a severe patient. So that was my concern in private hospital as well.
Yeah.
So, and what was the relation of your recommendation with your result?
Thank you. First question was the recommendation. Most of the cases, economic evaluation started from a cost analysis, and it was the first stage, primary stage cost analysis. I just only want to, we want to just follow the treatment cost. Then it will be our next, it will be how we can justify the cost effectiveness is the second part of a cost evaluation procedure. For that reason, it was my recommendation. It is just primary cost of treatment. So for the cost effectiveness, it will be a big study. It have needed of more people, more resource, and it is my recommendation that we can justify that this cost is reduced when we introduce the
okay, I think,
vaccination. Thank you.
Another last question, please.
Ji, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Dr. Geeta Rani Devi, Deputy Program Manager, Community-Based Healthcare. I would like to thank you for your nice presentation and also detailed explanation. Here, last recommendation was the necessity of the health insurance. I would like to want from you whether my government, Bangladesh government, is ready for the to take the health insurance under the insurance, because of our maximum people. We are a low middle income country, and have you any analytical data on this regard? Thank you very much.
I think Dr. Mohib, you did not collected data on this. It is for open discussion. We can consider it. I think answer is not necessary, because the health insurance is a vast section. The Health Economics Bureau, Health Economics unit of Ministry of Health will deal with that. Okay?
Yes.
Mohibullah?
Thank you, sir.
Please, with a big hand.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to Mohibullah for presenting a different type of study. Now Dr. Jafreen Jahed Jiti, she is FETP 6th cohort, what IDCR, clinical and epidemiological indicators of severity among lab-confirmed COVID-19 patient of Dhaka city from March 10 to April 30. The initial time when everybody was anxious, at that time, please, Jiti.
Thank you, dear moderator, sir, for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Jafreen from Field Epidemiology Training Program, Bangladesh. Today, my presentation is on clinical and epidemiological indicators of severity in laboratory-confirmed COVID-19 patients in Dhaka city, Bangladesh, from March 10 to April 30, 2020. As we know, COVID-19 started in Wuhan, China in December 2019. In 30 January 2020, WHO declared it as public health emergency of international concern. On February 2020, the WHO and China Joint Mission on Coronavirus Disease has characterized the severity of COVID-19 in 3 ways in their report. Mild to moderate cases included laboratory-confirmed mild cases, which incorporated both pneumonia and non-pneumonia cases. Severe cases included laboratory-confirmed cases including dyspnea, respiratory frequency more than or equals to 30 per minute, blood oxygen saturation less than or equals 93%, ratio between partial pressure of oxygen and fraction of inspired oxygen was less than 300, and or more than 50% of the lung involvement within 24 to 48 hours. Critical cases included laboratory-confirmed COVID-19 cases with respiratory failure or septic shock or multi-organ failure. According to the Joint Mission report of WHO and China, till 20 February 2020, 55,924 lab-confirmed COVID-19 cases were reported, where 80% were mild to moderate cases, 13.8% were severe cases, 6.1% were critical, and case fatality rate was 3.8%. Here the photo is showing a severe COVID-19 patient in Wuhan, China. Up to 27th April 2020, according to WHO situational analysis, 5,913 lab-confirmed cases were reported, and case fatality rate was 2.6% in Bangladesh. In a study done in Dhaka Medical College in April 2020, 53% confirmed COVID-19 cases were mild, 31% were moderate severity, 13% cases were severe, and 3% cases were critical. Here, the photo is showing funeral of a patient who died from COVID-19 in Dhaka, Bangladesh. The objective of my study is to describe the severity of COVID-19 in the initial 832 cases in Dhaka city by analyzing their clinical and epidemiological characteristics, symptoms, and comorbidities. Here, the photo is showing intensive care unit of COVID-19. We conducted a descriptive study on initial 832 cases of Dhaka city from March 10 to April 30. Of the 3,570 lab-confirmed cases of Dhaka notified in the Institute of Epidemiology, Disease Control and Research from March 10 to April 30, 2020, the team investigated 900 cases through telephonic interview. Due to inaccessibility through telephone and other exclusion criteria, 8% cases were not included in the study. In cases of inaccessibility, information was collected from the nearest relative. Final study participants were 832. 2 or more cases associated with the same household or location or group or event around the same time was termed as cluster. Primary cases was termed as first reported cases in a cluster whose source of infection could not be identified, and non-primary cases were contacts of the primary case who became positive for COVID-19 within 14 days of last exposure. Patient hospitalized with a complaint of severe respiratory distress and or needed oxygenation or ventilation were termed as severe cases. Interquartile range was calculated for age. 2-sample Wilcoxon-Ranson test was done to examine difference in age groups. Z-test was done for 2 proportions. Level of significance was set as p-value for less than 0.05. This is the proportion of severe and non-severe COVID-19 patients in Dhaka city from March to April 2020 in our study. 9% of our study participants were found to develop severity. 5% were dead, 91% of them were non-severe. The median age was 55 years for severe cases and 32 years for non-severe cases. Age was found significantly higher for severe cases. Here we can see the proportion of primary cases were found significantly higher for severe cases. Symptomatic cases were more severe than asymptomatic cases at notification. Severity among comorbid patients was significantly higher than patients without comorbidity. Patients with fever, dyspnea, cough, fatigue, chest pain, and sore throat in their earlier symptoms were more likely to become severe. Patients with comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, cardiac disease, respiratory illness, and kidney diseases were more likely to develop severity. Primary cases, older, initially symptomatic, and comorbid people had a higher risk of developing severe COVID-19 disease. We recommend close monitoring, early notification, and developing a supportive triage system to sort out the COVID-19 patients with these severity indicators. We acknowledge IEDCR, DG Health, and our team of FETP-B for being a part of this study.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Aditi. Nice presentation. Before I move to the audience here, there is one question online. Can you please make it clear again that how did you measure severity? Is there any radiological findings used to assess severity? Please.
Well, our study was case investigation and contact tracing finding of 832 initial cases of Dhaka city. And here we conducted telephonic interviews and collected their data. We didn't collected any laboratory information or radiological data. We did our analysis from the telephonic interview data on demographic, clinical information, and severity, comorbidities, and other information, and did an epidemiological and clinical analysis.
Many more interesting questions online. Question number 2, can you show the exclusion criteria of participants for your study? Please, Jiti.
Yes, sir. I have a slide for this. We had some exclusion criteria. Actually, for confirmed COVID-19 cases diagnosed from after-death sample collection, we excluded 2 of the cases from 900 before calculating the 832 participants. And incomplete information, one case where we took information from the nearest relative in case of dead patient, and one patient had incomplete information and we discarded that data.
Okay, good. Question number 3. What limitations did you face for telephonic interview of the case investigation? Please be short and precise because many more
Well,
questions.
for telephonic interview, it is the rule that you have to validate 20% data, but we couldn't do it due to a COVID situation. But we had some non-response bias for telephonic interview. 4.3% cases didn't receive phone, 0.3% requested callback but didn't receive call further, and 0.3% for 0.3% did confirmed COVID-19 case. Relative was reluctant to respond, and 1.4% had wrong phone number, 0.9% had absent phone number, 0.7% cell number found off after calling 5 times, and for 0.1% confirmed COVID-19 cases diagnosed from after-death sample collection. And we excluded it, and our study participant was 832 at last.
Okay, thank you. Next question, what do you mean by asymptomatic at notification?
Well, for asymptomatic at notification, as I told before, this was a case investigation and contact tracing data, and we followed up each cases for 14 days, and after notification, at first we called and took all the symptoms, and we calculated the symptomatic and asymptomatic as per the first call we gave them after notification, and analyzed that data. So we said that asymptomatic after notification. That we had 4 cases like this who were asymptomatic at notification, but later developed severity, developed symptoms and developed severity within 15 days of notification.
Thank you. 2 more questions. Did all hospitalized patients become severe? How many hospitalized cases were severe?
Well, not all hospitalized cases was severe. As we told,
you presented the data.
like I have a slide. Total hospitalized patient was actually 13.1%, that is 109. But during our case investigation and contact tracing, at first we were hospitalizing all the COVID-19 cases in March, whether they become severe or not, because the national protocol was like that. National protocol was to isolate the COVID-19 patients at hospital. Then later, so we took only the severe patients, we took only the hospitalized patients who developed severe respiratory distress and needed oxygen or ventilation. We considered them as severe cases.
Yes, clear. And the number 6 question, I think you don't need to answer. You have already answered. The question was, how did the dead patient's information was collected? What was the method? You have presented the method from relatives and near ones.
Yes, sir.
I will request, if no question is good from this house, because lot of question, lot of interest was generated from her presentation. No burning question from the audience here. I think I can allow Dr. Ziti to. One thing I was in mind that from my end, you compared the primary cases and non-primary cases in the clinical manifestation. Is it plausible that any difference from primary and non-primary cases? Because if anybody is infected, either primary or non-primary, outcome may be according to their other comorbidity or age, etc.
Yes, sir, I got your question.
Yes.
Actually, for primary cases, it was an initial data of COVID-19. I told earlier that it was the initial data. And initially, we have seen that the primary, the cases, the more the cases were being transmitted. From our data, we have found that the more the cases were being transmitted, they became less severe, and they didn't, actually they were less severe, most of the cases.
Okay, I got it. Because it is the early days of pandemic.
Early data.
Thank you, Jiti, for generating a lot of interest. Please give a big hand for her. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Now I will request Dr. Muhammad Tawhidul Anwar. He is 6th cohort FETPB at Medical Officer, DG Health. His topic is evaluation of the isolation status of COVID-19 cases through mobile phone from 13 June to 9 July 2020. Isolation status of the COVID-19 cases. They have got this information through mobile phone. Please, Dr. Tawhid.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, moderator, for giving me the opportunity. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon to all who are attending in first Bangladesh Congress on Epidemiology and Public Health 220 and listening me from the whole world. I am Dr. Muhammad Tawhidul Anwar. I am a medical officer in DG Health on OSD and FETP Bangladesh Fellow, currently working in IEDCR. I worked in the field from IEDCR from the very beginning of this current COVID-19 pandemic. I welcome all of you, sir, to hear about my study. My study title was the Evaluation of the Isolation Status of the COVID-19 Cases to the Mobile Phones, June to July in Bangladesh. This is the 18 March when IDCR first approached for emergency movement restriction of 3 unions of Madaripur district, that was Pachor, Baharatola and municipality of the Shipchor. And after that, the first localized community containment was done in Uttar Tolarbagh, Mirpur on 23rd March. Though nationwide country movement restriction was imposed from 26 March to 31st May. After more than 60 days of movement restrictions in countrywide movement restriction, there was piloting for zone-wise piloting for red, yellow or green zone as in Raja Bazar of Dhaka city. All the approaches were at the aim of these approaches was to contain the active cases to prevent the transmission. And we all know about the COVID-19, which spreads to the respiratory droplets, and incubation period may extend up to 14 days and which highly transmissible. In this aspect, containment of the active cases is very much necessary. And in this era of the digitalization, mobile phone use was incorporated in our system. We also use this mobile phone use in our contact tracing and also maintaining the social distance. But in this aspect, mobile phone monitoring in different countries like Taiwan, Singapore, Vietnam, India, and they're only mainly done for the maintaining the social distance and contact tracing. And here, mobile phone monitoring can be an innovative way to find out the movement distance of the active cases, whether they are maintaining the isolation, whether in the facility or in the home. And as per our DGHS guideline, whenever anyone gives a sample collection in a facility, we have to provide 22 informations in our sample collection form. And among them, phone number, provide of the phone number is necessary. And moreover, the phone number, and there is another column, relation of the phone number with the case is important. And it is mandatory during the data upload or data entry in the MIS tracker capture. And most importantly, the testing data being delivered or disseminated to this phone number also. So this phone number, use of this phone number, we piloted an approach for mobile phone monitoring of active COVID-19 cases to identify whether they are maintaining home or hospital isolation after diagnosis. This was a retrospective cross-sectional study which was conducted from 13 June to 9 July and which incorporates laboratory confirmed COVID-19 cases and who had active phone movement during the active incubation period of Bangladesh. We performed this monitoring with the ICT division and A2I program of Ministry of Post, Telecommunication and Information Technology of the Government of Bangladesh, and whole activities were coordinated from the Honorable Prime Minister's Office. And district health authorities used this data for containment of the cases in respective area. We set up an inclusion criteria for the selecting cases who moved more than 0.76 kilometer in her last movement, and by thus we also excluded the cases who moved less than 0.7 kilometer within the study period. And we, in operational definition, we defined the active cases who are being tested at positive for COVID-19 during the study period, and active incubation period as the 14 days interval from the day of diagnosis or day of the notification to next 14 days. We also defined the traveling as mobile phone movement of the active cases monitored by the system. We analyzed the data, descriptive analysis of the data by time, place, person accordingly, and proportional differences also estimated by setting up the p-value as desired less than 0.5. This data, we monitored more than more than 67,000 of cases within the study period. This study data shows that most of them were out of Dhaka district, 60%, whereas the remaining 40% cases were from the Dhaka district. In these data shows this, the cases monitor more than 50% of active cases moved or traveled during the incubation or active incubation period instead of remaining in isolation. However, they were advised for home or facility isolation. Their phone movement was recorded in the monitoring system. And we monitored more than 67,000 of cases out of 88,000 cases diagnosed within the study period. This table shows the data regarding the case of district location, whether they were from Dhaka or not. Data shows that among the monitored active cases who traveled during the isolation period, 70% of cases were outside of Dhaka district and the rest of them were from the Dhaka. And of the cases found on movement during the study period, 67% cases moved within the district area or near about her resident area from where she enrolled in the system. And these data shows that those who are found on movement in Dhaka district, only 28% traveled from Dhaka to another district. And in this study, we included those who traveled only 7.6 kilometer, and proportion test and our medial traveling distance was 2.4 kilometer, and range is 0.7 to 405.2 kilometers. This study showed the poor isolation was maintained by the COVID-19 cases outside of Dhaka districts. From these above our study, we recommend to conduct a mobile phone-based follow-up study to improve the quality of isolation among the active 19 cases. And we also recommend to interview the patients to determine the factor associated with them for not maintaining the isolation. I would like to acknowledge the institutes and persons who are involved in this case monitoring system. I also want to show my gratitude to the institute and respective resource persons who provided me the data and helped me in the analysis of this study.
Okay, thank
you, sir. Thank you, respected audience, for patient hearing.
Yes, very useful data. In the meantime, yes, a lot of interest generated. Question came by Google Doc. Before going to Google Doc, anybody from this audience face-to-face, any question? I want to give the priority this time. Huh? Please.
Hello,
Introduce-
Assalamu alaikum.
Introduce yourself, please.
I am Dr. Tariqul Islam, Deputy Program Manager, Community Based Healthcare, DG Health. আমার একটা প্রশ্ন ছিল, what did you get or achieve from lockdown of Wari and Rajabazar? Did you think that the lockdown approach gives effective result to us?
I think this question may not,
Thank
was
you, sir.
not part of his research.
My study period was to just get a note, get a reference from the Rajavar area that was an approach to contain the cases for preventing the transmission only.
Dr. Tawhid, there is a presentation tomorrow
Yes,
on
sir.
this topic. I think.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, please wait for tomorrow. Any other? You can now go for Google Doc. A lot of interest question. First question: how did you select the study participants for your study?
Yes, sir.
Please. How did you select the study participants for your study? Samples selection.
Before performing this study, we set up an enrollment, and enrollment done after being notified at positive in MIS DGHS, and case movement was calculated from the distance travel from the day of enrollment to day 14, and traveling distance measured on the last movement of cases at day 14. And moreover, we case selection criteria, we see that within the study, within our study period, there are about more than 88,000 of cases notified in the MIS. From them, we only maintained to follow up. There was only active phone movement was notified among the 67,000 of cases. Out of them, 35,903 cases are found on movement. And then we selected the criteria. We also set up another criteria. Those who moved within the study period more than 0.7 kilometer or more than 700 meter in her last movement. We enrolled this participant as our study participant.
Yes, I think next question has also been addressed. The next question was, would you please brief on the inclusion criteria? You have covered this, I think.
Yes, sir.
Now question number 3, how did you monitor that phone location?
Sir, in Bangladesh, phone location can be monitored by various ways, like as cell site location information, or TNT, whatever we call. And we also monitor the phone location by the global positioning system, and the other Bluetooth devices. We also monitor the phone system. In this our study, we use the cell site location information system. This is called the triangular system. Whenever any sort of phone, whether it is Android or whether it is normal device phone, if any phone moves, the movement data is recorded in the nearest tower. And there is a triangular network. A triangular network is being drawn up, and by this there is telcos, another information where the data is stored. Government just use the data from the telcos, and we found this from the IDCR.
I think you have satisfied the question here. And another next question, how did you confirm that the phone was carried by the confirmed case?
Thank you, sir. This is our major limitation of this study, as we know that it could be carried
this is
by
limitation.
relatives,
I think, yes,
or
you are
family
right.
member, or
Yeah.
enroll in the office colleague.
Yeah, that's limited. The next question, I would like to answer that. Do you think that it is a privacy violation for the general people of Bangladesh? I think no, because in pandemic situation, the law, the prevention and control of infectious diseases of 2018, it allows, and also during outbreak investigation, we can do that. But the confidentiality of the particular person is not being violated.
Yes, sir.
So this is not privacy violation, but there is no need of taking consent from the general research during outbreak investigation. It is not required. Thank you.
Yes,
I think.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Any question? Please, Dr. Tawhid, you can take your seat.
Yes.
I will
Thank you, sir.
invite-
Thank you, audience.
Ah, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
I can invite any person who are online to ask any question to the presenters. Anybody? Dr. Rabbani, any person who is attending online? No question? No, they have also already raised their question through Google Doc. I think that has been covered. I will hand over the mic to the organizers.
Thank you, sir. At this moment, we will go for a break, a short break of about an hour,